Keep your hand steady. That wasn't background radiation, Captain Darian Holt muttered, pacing the upper deck of the UES Retribution's bridge. The overhead lights dimmed just slightly as the ship's interface shifted to direct routing inputs. No one spoke, but every man present felt it. That prickling tension that seeped into the spine when something was about to unfold. Lieutenant Reese Calder didn't turn from his console. We've completed reconstruction of the Pioneer's last broadcast. 79% clarity. It's not good. Play it, Holt ordered, his voice leveled but clipped. Across the room, a low-pitch audio stream came to life. A man's voice, ragged but contained. Unmarked ships. We broadcasted standard recognition, no response. They just moved in. No shields raised. No threats, just eyes watching. Then the power spike. A sharp burst, static, then silence. The last few seconds were video only. Faces behind cracked visors. No screams, just impact. The image disintegrated into white noise. No one exhaled. They didn't announce themselves, Calder added, fingers frozen mid-command. They executed. Holt walked slowly to the forward window. Beyond the reinforced glass, Kepler 438b hung like a quiet witness, its muted green clouds drifting across its curved surface. Above the planet hovered an array of vessels. They weren't clustered like a fleet preparing for battle. They were posed, arranged deliberately. Shapes like monoliths carved into weapons. Every line on their hulls was ornamental, as if engineered more for reverence than for function. Visual enhancement, maximum range, Holt said. The viewport sharpened, symbols shimmered along the enemy ships, arcing sigils that pulsed in deep bronze, circular designs, sacred, ceremonial, religious. They want us to understand exactly how they see themselves, Holt murmured. Chief Engineer Silas Vorn stepped up beside him. Arrogant bastards turned orbital warfare into a sermon. They're not hiding their intent, Holt said. They want us to kneel before we know who they are. We've got incoming, Calder said. Direct signal, unencrypted, playing now. The screen flickered as a towering figure formed, not in full but as a clean projection overlay on the window. Clear, deliberate, and unaffected by distortion. The creature's skin shimmered with shifting gradients, shadows flowing across its frame like slow oil. Its eyes were pools of motion, unanchored to anything human. Terran vessel, the being began, voice oddly accentuated, not broken but foreign in cadence. You trespass into the sanctified dominion of the Zapurian continuum. You stand before divinity. Submit now and be reformed under order. Resist, and your ashes will fill the air above your dead world. Holt didn't speak immediately. He let the weight of the threat settle. Around him, his officers didn't move. No anger, no panic, just attention. I am Captain Darian Holt of Earth Command, he said, measured. 3 days ago, you destroyed an unarmed vessel conducting peaceful scans in an unclaimed system. 243 dead, no weapons, no cause, just a demonstration. The alien didn't blink. If it even had the capacity. Sacred space is not open to defilement. Your kind are insects trespassing upon scripture. Your ignorance is not a shield. You now stand beneath the gaze of gods. Holt stepped forward. No, we don't. You're just another regime hiding your crimes behind language. The alien leaned closer into the projection, gaze unchanging. We are Zethlor, High Overseer of the Continuum. For 3,000 cycles, our will has shaped this quadrant. Dozens of species bow. Your hesitation marks you already broken. Holt didn't flinch. We kneel to no one, least of all frauds wearing stolen crowns. The image evaporated. The bridge lights returned to their standard hue. Holt turned back toward his men. Status of their fleet, he asked. 58 ships, not counting the rear guard. No movement, Calder said. They're maintaining formation, still no targeting locks. They're waiting for a gesture, Vorn said. Any movement that justifies turning us into wreckage. Then we don't give them one, Holt said, eyes narrowing. Not yet. Calder turned from his display. Sir, I found something. Their shield arrays. Every ship's dispersal pattern matches. No adaptive modulation, no offsetting frequencies. Uniform. Vorn furrowed his brow. That's monument logic. Not military. That kind of setup is great for formation shows, not defense. What does that mean for us? Holt asked. If we can isolate the root harmonic and invert it, Vorn said, we can rupture the shield matrix across multiple vessels simultaneously. Think of it like tuning the exact wrong note into a glass wall. Can you do it? Holt said. I can try. Give me a narrowband channel in about 40 minutes. I'll need Calder's access to spectral sequencing. You've got it, Holt replied. He turned again to the viewport, where the alien fleet hung immobile, but not idle. It was a display, not of readiness, but of superiority. They weren't waiting because they were hesitant. They were waiting because they believed they had time. Holt's jaw flexed once. We're not backing off. They want us to blink. We won't, not this time. Calder looked up. Orders? Begin harmonic analysis. No outward signals. Stay dark. Let them believe we're still trying to understand what we're seeing. Bourne grinned without humor. They still think we brought this ship to observe. Holt didn't smile. His voice lowered. Less command, more promise. They'll learn soon enough we brought it to end a myth. Bring shields to maximum containment. I want layered modulations, not bulk resistance, Holt ordered. His tone clipped and unsparing as he stepped into the center pit of the command deck. His posture was squared, eyes sweeping the heads-up displays embedded in the transparent panels surrounding the primary console. The air tasted faintly of recycled coolant and carbon-purged alloy, warm from the number of bodies packed into the bridge. Reese Calder responded without looking up. Recalibrating shield lattice across vector arcs. They'll read us as bracing for impact, not preparing to strike. Let them think we're here to survive, Holt said. We'll educate them when we're ready. Outside the reinforced viewport, the alien formation adjusted. 60 ships repositioned in a high-orbit encirclement, the angles between each vessel narrowing with methodical elegance. Their movement resembled choreography more than maneuver, as if ceremony guided every metric of their operation. Each ship's hull shimmered with ambient field halos that pulsed in rhythmic intervals. Golden pulses beating like a slow, synchronous heart. They've gone full sphere, Vorn noted from the engineering tier. Encirclement, no gaps. They're building a cage. People think we're already in it, Holt muttered. Heads-up telemetry began flashing across the side panels. Cross-sections of the Zapirian shield arrays, thermal bleed signatures, pulsed energy echoes. Calder highlighted key segments as they fed through. I've cracked the resonance, Calder said. They're recycling identical feedback loops across the entire network. No ship operates independently. That's a flaw, Holt said. Vorn? The engineer was already running simulations, hands gliding over control surfaces with a surety born from dozens of field retrofits. I can invert the wavefront. If we spike their core harmonic in reverse polarity and stagger it by 3 microseconds, we won't just hit one shield. We'll destabilize the sequence across anything networked with it. Limit our exposure, Holt said. Target only. No wide aegis surge. We're not trying to impress them. We're testing a theory. Which one? Vorn asked without sarcasm. That they built their strength to be watched, not used. The forward viewport brightened momentarily as the enemy vessels initiated a brief rotation exposing different hull configurations, each one gleaming, engraved with deep ridges and flowing inlay like weapons forged as tributes. One ship moved slightly ahead of the rest, larger, flanked by 2 identical models at half its scale. Isolate the command vessel, Holt said. Calder tagged it on the grid. Energy output exceeds the rest by 24%. Defensive cores are consolidated into central compartments. Looks ceremonial. No redundancy. Perfect, Holt said. That's where we start. Vorn turned. I'll have the spike ready in 4 minutes. Get it done in 2, Holt said. They won't wait forever. The crew worked without showmanship. Men who understood urgency without panic. Words were traded in half-sentences and brief acknowledgments. Every system calibrated with attention, tuned not to spectacle but survival with intent. On the visual grid, the enemy fleet shimmered as several of their ships adjusted again, aligning port-side flanks in a way that formed a curved mesh of golden barriers. A layered formation designed to invoke awe. It did not change Holt's breathing. "They've opened a channel again," Calder said. "Block audio, show visual only." Zethlor's face reappeared. Calm, severe, unchanging. He didn't speak at first. He simply stared, as though expecting Holt to initiate the concession. "Play nothing, respond with nothing," Holt said. The alien's image stared for 11 seconds, then faded. "That's their posture, Reed," Vorn said. "They want a reaction. When they don't get it, they'll either strike or escalate theatrically." "We're betting on the latter," Holt said. A dull tone hit the control interface, Calder's confirmation signal. "Spike is calibrated," Vorn said. "We target the forward oscillation node on the command vessel, match its phase inversion window, and inject a counter-harmonic surge. It should drop that ship's defenses and unbalance 2 others in sequence." Holt nodded once. "Single strike, controlled, make it surgical." He leaned over the master fire console, arm brushing against the safety panel. No announcement, no rally. Just an acknowledgement between professionals. Fire. The ship gave no recoil, no roar. The only indication that anything had occurred was the shift in light on the forward screen. A tight pulse of cobalt energy lanced outward, curved slightly by the gravitic offset field Vorn had introduced, and vanished into the shield perimeter of the Zapparian command ship. For a moment, nothing changed. Then the shield lines warped. Not shattered, bent. Their golden cohesion twisted in place like a liquid pulled sideways through an invisible wall. Sparks tore across the external armor, not from impact, but from internal misalignment. One of the escort vessels flanking the target vibrated briefly and fell out of formation, its stabilizers failing. "The net's unraveling," Calder said, watching as lines of the enemy defense began glitching across 3 additional ships. The alien formation didn't react, at least not instantly. Then, a shift. "They're recalibrating alignment," Vorn observed. "But they're slow, it's not automated. It's like they've never had to adapt." Holt's voice was low but final. "They built their legacy in a world that never hit back." The Zapparian fleet began to rotate again, this time less elegantly. It wasn't an attack posture, it was defense. They were shielding the exposed sectors, reshuffling vessels to block the ones now vulnerable. "They didn't expect feedback across their array," Calder said. "They're working without internal segmentation. They think unity is immunity." "They're wrong," Holt said. He paced forward again, watching as the command ship realigned and activated counterfield stabilizers, overcompensating, generating heat that shimmered visibly even from orbital distance. "Next time we hit," Vorn said, "they'll brace hard." "That's the point," Holt replied. "We make them afraid of having to react." On the screen, the enemy fleet's symmetry had fractured. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough to make their message lose its polish. Enough for the men aboard the Retribution to see not gods, but a fleet scrambling to maintain an illusion of control. Holt stepped down into the lower bridge level, standing behind Calder's station. "Log their formation's response," he said. "Tag every corrective measure. This is how they bleed, not with fire, but with hesitation." Calder nodded, compiling the incoming data feed. "We've made contact," Vorn said, watching the shield decay curves slowly reset across the board. "That ship's not destroyed, but its protection hierarchy collapsed." "They'll pretend it didn't happen," Holt replied. "That's what tyrants do when they flinch." Outside, the enemy formation stabilized again. Their posture hadn't changed, but the symmetry was gone. And with it, the first crack in their divine performance. "We don't strike again until Earth sends the fleet," Holt said. "Let this hit settle into their doctrine. Let them explain this failure to each other." He moved back to the center console, eyes locked on the image of the damaged ship, now drifting slightly out of alignment. Prep shield modulation for counterpulse dampening, he ordered. They'll be coming next. Open the line, let's see if they can speak without posturing, Holt said, arms folded, as he stared down the enemy formation, still settling into its restructured configuration. The Zethlorian ships hadn't broken position entirely, but the aesthetic grace they flaunted earlier had fractured. One vessel drifted just off alignment, the aftershock of the harmonic rupture still visible in the irregular pulse bleeding across its ventral flares. Calder keyed in the communications override. Audio and visual open. Channel isolated. The heads-up panel in front of Holt flashed as the link connected. Torrin Maeve's face appeared. Calm, lined with decades of diplomatic grit, his voice steady but terse. Captain, I've reached them. They've accepted a limited transmission window. Position? Holt asked. Docked aboard the Kavra. It's not a command ship. Likely ceremonial. They want to perform neutrality. Holt didn't blink. Then let's test how they define the word. The secondary screen split. Across from Maeve, the figure of a Zethlorian stood tall. Posture fixed, like it had been carved into rigidity. The same unnerving bioluminescence traced its skin, but its demeanor showed a fracture. Barely visible, but there. I speak for the continuum, it declared, each syllable sharpened to cut through any pause. Your interference in sacred regions must cease. We accept your transmission, only to document your surrender. Maeve didn't respond. He waited. Holt knew the tactic. Let the arrogance exhaust itself before injecting substance. You initiated contact, the ambassador said finally. Because you realize now, we don't fall apart under divine threats. This channel is an offer, not a ritual. Do you intend to stop your advance? You are guests on a carpet soaked in legacy, the Zethlorian answered. We have tolerated your intrusion long enough. Further hesitation will be interpreted as rebellion. Holt stepped forward, his voice feeding into the channel. You murdered a vessel full of scientists without warning. You displayed no doctrine, no demand, no terms. That wasn't punishment, that was spectacle. Those aboard violated planetary sanctity. They died, as all violators must. Maeve's jaw twitched. Your response defines the limits of this negotiation. Before the channel could be closed, the Zethlorian gestured behind it. An unnatural flourish. The screen darkened. Calder, cross-check all transmissions within the last 5 seconds, Holt ordered. Got something, Calder replied. Tactical bandwidth opened on secondary vector. It's not for us. It's aimed planet-side. Location? Research outpost, Terran facility, Kepler Surface Station 14. Holt's head turned. They're firing! Outside the viewport, 3 Zethlorian ships adjusted pitch angles. Their underslung weapon rails glowed with condensed energy, arcs forming in a slow, deliberate sequence. Seconds later, crimson shafts burst from their hulls, striking the far side of Kepler's equator. No civilian shielding, Calder said. That site had hydromining researchers and xenobotanical personnel, no one armed. From orbit, the explosions looked small, flares spreading like oil ignited on dark water. But Holt knew what had been beneath those domes. Greenhouses, data cores, life monitoring facilities, and people. Cut all feeds, Holt said. No one responded with ceremony. The bridge snapped into execution mode. Every man moved with controlled urgency. Anger didn't speak. It operated. Target those 3 vessels. Focus on their weapon control sectors. Avoid core destruct. I want them dead in the water, not erased. Calder rerouted targeting vectors. We'll need a double pulse pass-through to pierce the shield resets they've engaged. Do it, Holt said. Send the spike. Vorn activated the adjusted pulse trigger. The retribution didn't lurch, it simply released. 2 coordinated bursts threaded between the frontal arc of the Zethlorian formation, not slamming but slicing. The weapon systems aboard the enemy ships dimmed, then sparked with wild, uncontained discharges. One ship's ventral stabilizers ignited. Another began leaking energy in irregular pulses, venting coolant across orbit in what looked like a fluid vapor trail. They're not destroyed, Calder reported, but their weapons won't recover. Not today. Good, Holt said. Let them feel exposed, not wounded, stripped. He stepped toward the ops terminal and triggered the isolated message relay. The encryption confirmed, Holt began recording. This is Captain Darian Holt, UES Retribution, Command Authorization 47. We have engaged the Superior Fleet in orbit over Kepler 438b. They attacked a civilian research site without provocation. Contact protocols were attempted, no response given. Tactical analysis confirms coordinated religious doctrine driving their operations. Recommend immediate fleet deployment. Full mobilization required. He paused before ending the transmission. Really aren't gods. They're performers playing to a script written in someone else's blood. He sent the message. Across the bridge, no one spoke. The image on the forward screen returned to its standard star map overlay, but the crew's eyes weren't on it. They were fixed on the red-marked points showing where the domes had been. The readings were gone. No life signs, no data sinks, no heat. Feed the research station, Calder asked. Holt didn't answer right away. His eyes remained locked on the data point. Because it couldn't fight back. The crew didn't ask what came next. Begin orbital drift modulation, Holt said. Shift our positioning by 4 degrees. Make it look like we're covering the wreckage. Let them think we're grieving. Calder arched an eyebrow. Why pretend? Because that's how they bait the next mistake, Holt answered. And we'll be watching for it. He walked toward the primary viewport, now darkened except for telemetry lines. Far below, fires still flickered on Kepler's surface, too distant to hear, too close to forget. They're not used to consequences, Holt said. That's going to change. As he turned from the viewport, the crew was already adjusting formations. Defensive grids shifted. Pulse sequencers reloaded. The war hadn't escalated with a volley or a command. It had escalated the moment restraint was answered with spectacle. Belly expects surrender next, Vorn muttered from below deck. Then they're reading the wrong playbook, Holt said. He turned toward the central command well. The next message wouldn't be diplomatic. Something's wrong with the drift timing, Calder muttered, his knuckles tight on the console as the enemy formation began to shift again, this time unevenly, less calculated, more reactive. The Zampirians were recalibrating fast, but even that realization barely held weight against the sudden drop in noise across the command deck. A tremor passed through the Retribution. Not a jolt, but a drop, as if momentum had been cut from reality itself. The stars beyond the viewport dimmed, not from system failure, but from something interfering with light itself. Status report now, Holt snapped, eyes flicking to the heads-up interface. Every line on every feed halted mid-separate. The rotation of icons froze, data stopped rendering, and all instrument layers locked simultaneously. Vorn's voice didn't carry panic, it carried confusion. No control loss. No damage, just... Every sensor stack paused, every diagnostic suspended midstream. Calder tried reloading subroutines. Nothing responded. His lips parted. This isn't a system error. A light that wasn't part of any ship cast a glow across the bridge. No identifiable source. No angle of origin. It simply existed. Blue-white, like a fusion burn filtered through deep ocean water. Beyond the Retribution's viewing plane, the darkness fractured. A split appeared in space, not an explosion, not a tear, but a displacement, as if the fabric between dimensions folded and allowed something through that never needed propulsion. What emerged dwarfed every vessel in the system, not merely in size but in meaning. The structure didn't follow geometry, it defied it. Plates the length of cities folded inward. Gaps opened where light bent wrong, as though reality couldn't agree on what shape it had. No weapon ports, no signal flares. The thing didn't transmit. It didn't move. It simply became part of the local space like it had always been there. Then everything shut down. All across both fleets, Terran and Superior, screens dimmed. Interfaces froze. Artificial gravity held, but every man aboard the Retribution felt the same internal stillness, the sensation of being observed. Without sound, without time, without judgment. 9 seconds passed. Then everything came back at once. Displays reignited, command pathways returned, engines came online, the laser plasma tracking systems refreshed. All without reboot. The alien formation had drifted out of position. They, too, had lost control. Holt reached for his earcom but stopped halfway. It wasn't his thoughts that interrupted. It was a voice. Inside his mind. Not loud, not soft. Not a voice at all, but a presence, conveying information, not language. You are not the first to challenge dominion. But you are the first to reject borrowed strength. The crew looked around, not panicked, not broken. Each man aboard the Retribution heard it. None said a word. They didn't need to. We are the architects. The children of this galaxy built empires from our remnants. You have not. You forged without theft. That is rare. Calder's fingers froze above his interface. Did anyone else? I heard it, Vorn confirmed. Wasn't broadcast, wasn't routed through the ship. It came directly. Another flicker ran through the air. Not visible, but felt. In the center of the bridge, beneath the tactical projection arc, a new object formed. It didn't teleport. It didn't shimmer. It arrived as if it had always been part of the deck and reality finally caught up. A crystal, no more than 2 feet tall, hexagonal in shape. Inside it swirled something not liquid, not gas, just motion. Stars moved within it slowly, without pattern. No one touched it. Holt stepped forward and crouched beside it. The crystal's surface responded, not to proximity but to acknowledgement. It projected no image. It offered no terms. But data flowed directly into the ship's command core. No bypasses. No breaches. Calder, Holt said. Check internal memory. Access the stream. Calder nodded once, calling up the command interface. As the feed spooled, he paused. This isn't just historical. It's live data. Thousands of entries, technology, language roots, recorded behavior patterns across species. But it's built to share, not to control. Bourne looked up. It's not a weapon. It's truth. Or a challenge, Holt said. Outside the ship, the architect's vessel hadn't moved. It hadn't responded to anything. And then, as quickly as it had arrived, it began to recede. Not jump, not fly, but withdraw. Folding into the crease it had emerged from. Its form shrank without loss of scale, retreating into a space that wasn't measurable. Within 10 seconds it was gone. And in its place, nothing. No debris, no trace, not even gravity flux. Holt turned to the crew. They came here to watch. Watch what? Vorn asked, voice low. To see who reacts like gods, Holt said, and who acts like builders. The crystal's light dimmed slightly, stabilizing. Holt finally placed his hand on the top. No shock, no reaction. But when his fingers met the surface, one line of script emerged, etched faintly against the glow. Use it well. He turned to Calder. Transmit a package to Earth Command. Flag it encrypted full grade. Let them know a higher order just rang the bell. What do we tell them we found? Calder asked. Holt's answer came with no pause. Proof. That the empire we're facing isn't divine. It's borrowed. And that someone else just gave us the key to break their claim. Vorn looked down at the crystal. And if we misuse it, then the ones who left it behind might return, Holt said. Next time without a gift. Heads-up panels returned to full function, navigation realigned, Zapirian comms resumed, but none of them broadcast. Not even Zethlor. Their fleet remained staggered, formation drifted. They had seen the architects too, and unlike humans they had seen what they once pretended to be. Send them nothing, Holt added. Let them sit in the dark with us. And then he walked off the bridge floor to review the data that just changed everything. Begin the broadcast. All channels, no encryption, no Terran markers, Holt said, standing behind Calder's station as the final code string locked into place. The crystal, now housed within a magnetically sealed vault near the core, had already restructured the ship's signal capabilities. It didn't just carry information. It delivered memory. Across the screen, a single image appeared, a Zephyrian war leader standing before rows of kneeling slaves. Then, the overlay shifted, showing that same leader studying a crashed progenitor vessel. One layer deeper, the crystal showed how the Empire rose, not through creation, but replication. Every miracle they claimed had been stolen. Every species they conquered had been subdued, not by genius, but by artifacts they didn't understand. Calder's fingers hovered over the release command. When this goes out, there's no walking it back. Good, Holt said. That's how truth works. The signal was launched. In orbit above 392 worlds, encrypted relay stations hijacked Imperial feeds. At first, viewers expected another display of Zephyrian strength, another sermon of superiority. What followed instead dismantled 3 millennia of fear. On the mining colonies of Vortis Alpha, the workers stopped mid-shift. Kes Tharn, once a translator forced to recite continuum scripture to keep his people compliant, stood atop a broken cargo hauler, projecting the decrypted stream from a field emitter. He lied, he told the assembled crowd. Every word, every punishment, every law, fabricated. The chains weren't forged in power, they were inherited. Someone near the front threw a hammer into a ceremonial altar. The crowd didn't cheer, they didn't cry. They moved, purposefully, without direction, because they didn't need one anymore. On Mirat's twin moons, carved statues of Zephyrian overseers stood above desalination plants. One was already leaning, its foundation worn by acid storms. As the stream hit local feed towers, a teenage Morvac hurled a beam rifle into the base. The crack wasn't thunderous, it was hollow, but enough. The figure toppled, crashing through the maintenance basin. Water flooded the platform. Across the world, murals were scrubbed away, not repainted, just removed. Erasure had its own language. On Hark's Ive, a biodome research facility filled with enslaved Atharians debated the feed in real time. They didn't trust the humans, but they trusted what they saw. The crystal didn't just show events. It transmitted decisions, log entries, council orders, falsified historical scripts, translated in 39 languages. One older scholar, blind in one eye from a failed retinal injection long ago, stood beside the young, who didn't remember life before captivity. "We wrote the stars," he said, "but now we can hold the pen." On a Zephyrian-controlled trade route through the Alcrini Belt, freighter crews hesitated. Their comms lit up with unanswered queries. Orders from the Empire stopped mid-transmission. The commanders hadn't fled. They didn't know what to say. In a shipyard above Varkesh Prime, a technician unplugged the loyalty override tether from his exosuit, walked into the command bay, and set the fire suppression system to manual override. He didn't yell. He just walked out. Inside the Retribution, the crew tracked each reaction. No weapons fired. No fleets launched, but something larger had ignited. A fracture that required no fuel. "They're not organizing yet," Calder said, "but they're reacting. Riots, uprisings, some worlds are frozen, processing, others are already moving." "Don't push them," Holt said. "This isn't ours to direct." Bourne looked up from the engineering console. "Do we offer them support?" "Only when asked," Holt answered. "Let them own their rebellion, not inherit it." One request came faster than expected. Kes Tharn's voice hit the Retribution's primary channel. "We need atmospheric survey data on old Zephyrian bunkers buried under Vordian Ridge. They used to be strongholds. We plan to take them back." Calder preloaded the terrain maps. "Should we scrub their comms metadata?" "No," Holt said. "Let it carry our signature. If the Empire wants to call that interference, let them do it out loud." Another request. Harkest IV. A group of Atharians asked for access to weather control systems locked under Imperial credentials. They wanted reign over the dust plains again, for food, not protest. "You think they'll escalate?" Bourne asked, monitoring the Zephyrian response patterns. "They don't have a doctrine for loss," Holt replied. "They'll deny until denial breaks under weight." On Kepler, The site of the destroyed research station remained untouched. The crater, scorched and blackened, had become a rally point. The message was displayed on loop through proximity transceivers. No speaker, no sermon, just the data, the images, the truth. "They're calling it the Ash Rebellion," Calder said, reading incoming feeds from independent broadcasts. Holt didn't smile. Names don't win wars, but they remember who drew the line. Across the quadrant, transmissions flooded in, fragmented, messy, uncoordinated. Some begged for Terran help, others demanded humanity stay away. One Zapperian dissident sent a direct message to the Retribution, not to apologize, but to ask if he could testify when the trials began. "Let them speak for themselves," Holt said. "We didn't come here to take back the galaxy. We came here to give it back." A final relay flared up, Kess Tharn again. This time, he wasn't broadcasting. He was speaking directly. "That we always feared truth more than weapons," he said. "Now we know why." Holt stood at the center console. "Send one sentence back. That's all." Calder waited. What should it say? "Tell them the gods didn't fall," Holt said. "They were never standing. You want an enemy?" Major Kellen Drex snapped as he grabbed the rifle from the Vortian youth's hands. "That's a school. You want to burn what you just fought to free?" The boy's claws clenched, not in rebellion, but in confusion. Around them, smoke coiled up from the remains of a Zapperian outpost. Barracks gone, towers reduced to twisted struts, flags trampled into dust. The war had shifted to the surface, not with armies, but with vengeance. Scattered, personal, brutal. Kellen scanned the courtyard. No soldiers remained here. Only elders, medtechs, and 2 children, one holding onto the hem of a robe that no longer carried authority. Blood streaked the walkways, but it wasn't only from the Empire's old guards. "Back away from the door," Drex ordered. "No further damage. Hold your fire perimeter." His unit obeyed instantly. Each man knew this was not a zone to conquer. It was a zone to hold against chaos. A rebel commander named Skarn approached Kelthani, heavy-boned, his breast sharp with dried adrenaline. "They raised whips on my father's spine. That building printed edicts that erased our names. And now they're inside, hiding from yours," Drex said. "What exactly do you want? An apology in ashes?" Skarn glanced toward the cracked archway. "Justice. You're chasing symmetry, not justice," Drex replied. "That's a mirror, not a verdict." Far above the planet, aboard the Retribution, Holt watched from a satellite feed. The heads-up display captured a dozen views across occupied regions. Zones marked not by military resistance, but by ethical disintegration. "They're targeting soft infrastructure," Calder reported. "Civic centers, history vaults, even water stations." "Patterns?" Holt asked. "Retaliation-driven. No coordinated objective, every fire starts with a memory." Holt turned away from the screen. "Prepare an orbital drop. No weapons. Relief modules only. We're not policing vengeance with armor." Orn glanced up from his station. "You're going down there?" "Orders carry less weight when they're only seen through optics," Holt said. "If they think we're claiming the throne, we walk the street." When Holt stepped off the lander onto the surface of Toruk Prime's capital, the heat clawed up from the ground with more rage than the crowd. Around him, buildings bore signs of focused damage. Roof corners charred, doorways wrecked, but banners left hanging. It was psychological warfare, not tactical. He walked past a ruined checkpoint. His presence didn't draw cheers. It drew wariness. At a public square once used for Zapperian council ceremonies, Holt spotted a group of rebel leaders in mid-argument. A few humans stood among them, offering supplies. Not orders. That distinction mattered. It wasn't being honored. One voice cut through the discord. "They replaced the throne with a new flag." Holt stepped forward. "You speak for all this?" he asked. The Morvok rebel turned. "We didn't ask you to lead us." "Good," Holt replied. "I'm not here to lead. I'm here to remind you what started this." The Morvok crossed his arms. You mean the transmission, the one your ship spread like holy writ. That data came from a truth older than any flag, Holt said. We didn't write it. We broadcast it. Because lies don't deserve gravity. A Zephyrian elder was dragged through the crowd, shaking, confused. Someone had tied propaganda flyers to his back like mock wings. Let him go, Holt said. No, a Vian teenager shouted. They wore masks of divinity, now they wear shame. Amazing. He taught arithmetic to minors, Holt said. Not obedience. The boy faltered. You came here to end an empire, Holt continued. That doesn't give you one to build in its place. Someone in the crowd threw a rock at the steps where Holt stood. It bounced off the stone. He didn't flinch. No fleets follow us, Holt said. No flags fly behind us. That's by design. You wanted the truth? You got it. Now decide whether you'll build or burn. Skarn stepped out from the perimeter line. You walk among us without armor. That earns some credit. I don't need your credit, Holt replied. I need your restraint. Skarn nodded. And if we don't give it? Then you become what you hated. Holt turned, not waiting for applause. That would have insulted everything they'd endured. Behind him, the crowd dispersed. Not quickly, not in unity, but in fractions. For now, it was enough. Back aboard the Retribution, Drex met Holt near the lower docking access. You walked into that like it was a briefing room. No, Holt said. I walked into it like it was mine to answer for. Calder's voice came through comms. Multiple rebel groups are transmitting independent charters. Not all hostile. Some asking for coordination on food logistics and med routes. Only help if they sign it themselves, Holt said. We can offer data, we don't print constitutions. Later that night, one of the med teams reported a clinic, untouched by either side. Its glass intact, its records preserved. No graffiti, no fire damage. Just a note, etched into the floor tiles by hand. Knowledge is not a weapon, it is a shelter. Holt read it, then powered off his compad. Keep that place supplied, he told Drex. That's the first sign of recovery. Drex nodded. And the rest? They'll follow when they realize war can't rebuild anything. Bring in the prisoner. The guards moved with mechanical discipline. 2 humans, 1 Kalthani and 1 Aetherian. Each bearing no crest, no rank markers. Their task was simple, transport, not torment. Between them shuffled Zethlor, High Overseer of the former Zephyrian Continuum, his ornate robes replaced by unmarked gray fabric. Shackles bound his wrists, not as restraint, but as record. His steps clacked against the chamber's polished composite flooring, each one announcing a former tyrant's descent, without embellishment. The tribunal room, circular, tiered, function over grandeur, stood filled but wordless. Representatives from 12 species occupied the council benches. No banners, no military guards. Just lawmakers, victims, and witnesses. Major Kellen Drex stood at the side wall, arms crossed. Holt watched from the upper concourse, not in uniform, not giving orders. Present only as witness. The laser-etched header glowed across the room's main arc. Crimes against non-combatants, cultural suppression, use of stolen psychological advantage in civilian subjugation. The chair at the center of the dais activated. It wasn't a throne. It didn't even recline. Zethlor sat, chin lifted, expression unreadable. He didn't speak. Not yet. The first testimony began. A Kalthani environmental researcher, a survivor of forced bioconversion labor camps, projected a 3-second time-lapse from a heads-up display implanted into his former retinal lens. It showed a Zapparian overseer demanding 72-hour work shifts under toxin exposure. No dramatics, no added commentary, just data. Next came an Aetherian historian. Her people's archives had been repurposed into false temples. She displayed pages redacted by neural ink, names erased mid-len, centuries removed from the record, in favor of artificial genealogies that place Zapparians at the root of every civilization. The Morvok combat medic described front lines where her species had been sent as living shields. Never trained, never supplied. Just assigned to die before the Zapparians even engaged. Each account came through a different medium: recorded neural recall, direct visual feeds, pulse echo memory loops, and more. One witness used a carved memory stone, the last of his kind's traditions not outlawed. He didn't speak. He placed the stone on the dais. It sang for 6 seconds, a note sharp enough to bring ache to the ears. When it ended, no one asked questions. Zethlor's eyes never moved. The tribunal chair rotated slightly. "Does the defendant wish to respond?" Zethlor leaned forward. His voice carried no strain. "I acknowledge the outcome of my rule. I do not recognize the terms of this gathering." The Keltani delegate tapped a slate. "We're not here for your recognition. We're here for confirmation." "I did what gods do," Zethlor continued. "Shape destiny. Secure order. Preserve control." "You built nothing," the Atharion responded. "You preserved fear." A murmur passed through the gallery. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just fatigue given sound. Holt stepped forward. The tribunal lead nodded once. "You've been granted 5 minutes." He approached the dais slowly. Each footstep was deliberate. No fanfare followed him. No guards. Just a man in fleet gray. "You were never a god," Holt said. "You were a thief. You didn't just conquer people. You corrupted their memory of what came before. You didn't forge peace. You extinguished the idea of choice." Zethlor raised his chin. "And you think cages will erase my legacy?" Holt didn't answer immediately. He looked at the cracked ceremonial stone still sitting in the testimony ring. "No, but labor will. No sermons, no followers, just fields, just tools, just effort." Zethlor's composure wavered, not visibly, but Holt saw it. The slightest shift in posture, the realization of what it meant to exist without reverence. "You will rebuild," Holt said, "under orders, under observation, with hands that once wrote edicts now moving rubble." The tribunal confirmed the verdict. Not death, not exile, life, service, manual reconstruction on the Outer Rim colonies, worlds once stripped for resource extraction, now in desperate need of reclamation. As Zethlor was escorted out, the room didn't cheer. It didn't applaud. It breathed, not in relief, but in recognition. The Zephyrian overseer who once demanded galactic obedience now walked a corridor to a work assignment posted by beings he had never considered equals. Outside, Drex met Holt near the exit ramp. "Justice?" Drex asked. "Closure," Holt replied. Justice would have been never needing this room. A young Vortian activist approached. "Why didn't you take his head?" "Because we don't use heads as currency," Holt said. "He won't lead again. But he'll remember what it means to follow." Later that evening, as the courtroom lights dimmed and the chairs retracted, the tribunal seal remained etched above the center point. Not a flag, not a symbol. One phrase. "No one builds chains and calls them gods again." "You don't need chains to hold an empire," Holt said, walking past the statue with his hands behind his back. "Just enough people who stop asking questions." His voice didn't echo. The plaza wasn't built for speeches. It had no stage, no throne, no flags. Just a monument of stone and alloy, each piece contributed by a different species, carved into the shape of linked hands reaching outward. Not upward, not to be worshipped, just outward. To connect. Behind him, crowds filled Haven Station's central atrium. No uniformity, no drilled formations. Just clusters of beings who had once shared nothing except fear. Now they shared a future. Inside the signing chamber, the last 3 delegates sealed the charter with biometric stamps. A Vortian scholar, a Kelthani refugee, and, remarkably, a former Zephyrian engineer, no longer draped in regalia, only in a worker's tunic. The Galactic Accord was now real, legally binding, ideologically clear. No species shall rule unilaterally. All votes equal. All lives accounted. Drex leaned against the chamber wall, arms folded. "You sure this'll hold?" "No. Holt replied, eyes on the glass beyond the council ring. But it'll bend in the right direction. That's more than we had a year ago. Below the station, hundreds of vessels orbited in rotating alignments. Trading routes, scientific missions, civilian relays. The Retribution sat docked among them, its hull now stripped of armaments. On its broadside was etched a single phrase, "First to refuse." Inside its main corridor, schoolchildren passed exhibits, parts of the original command chair, fragments of enemy ship plating, the crystalline core delivered by the architects. They didn't flinch when they read "false gods." They asked questions instead. A boy pointed at an image of Zethlor's tribunal. "Did he cry?" he asked. His instructor smiled, not patronizing. "No." But he blinked more than once. The boy didn't understand the weight of that yet, but he would. In the command wing, Holt stood before the observation glass, now clean of tactical overlays. The lights of surrounding ships blinked in uneven patterns, more alive than any formation grid. Lisa Martinez approached, her admiral's badge worn without ceremony. "Still watching?" "Just once more," Holt said. "You know you're not going to be missed by command," she said, crossing her arms. "You walked away after a victory." "I didn't walk away," he said. "I stopped when there was no one left to aim at." Martinez nodded toward the northern corridor. "A Vortian delegation asked for you earlier. Their children wanted to know who said we kneeled to no one." "I don't want that quoted," Holt replied. "That line belonged to the moment. It doesn't belong in textbooks." "You're not going to win the fight against history, Darian." "Not trying to," he said. "Just asking it not to lie." Elsewhere on the station, a new signal drew attention, a low-frequency pulse from deep patrol relays in the Seraph Belt. Teams gathered around heads-up displays, scanning the waveform. No words, no warning. Just a pattern, one recognized instantly by the scientific branch. The progenitor beacon activated. Martinez stepped into the chamber first. The beacon wasn't massive. It was less device and more monument, octagonal, lightly humming with embedded stars orbiting in its translucent structure. They rotated with exact gravity differentials, impossible to replicate artificially. Everyone in the room understood they were not seeing tech. They were standing near legacy. The display projected 2 lines across the wall, readable by every linguistic group simultaneously. "You have passed. Use this galaxy well." There were no coordinates, no invitation, no threat. Just finality and permission. Martinez exhaled. "They're not coming back." "No," Holt agreed. "They never intended to. They were waiting for us to prove we didn't need to become them." Drex entered with Kestharn beside him. The Vortian had grown into more than a symbol, now leading logistics efforts across former conflict zones. He said little, as usual, but his presence was confirmation. Martinez turned toward Holt. "This is your last walk, isn't it? You picked a good end." Holt didn't respond with pride, just a nod. Later, outside the station's ceremony chamber, a final council had been called. Not for decisions, but for recognition. One by one, representatives stepped forward to mark a new date in the galactic ledger. No calendar alignment, no religious synchrony, just agreement. This day would be called the Reckoning's Wake, not to mourn, but to acknowledge the weight of surviving it. The progenitor artifact remained on display behind reinforced casing. Not guarded, not studied, just honored. On his way to the shuttle, Holt passed a small learning circle. A human boy and a Zapirian girl worked on a shared task coordinating relay signals for an atmospheric stabilizer on a war-torn world. Neither knew what the Zapirian Empire had once stood for. They didn't need to. That was the point. One instructor caught Holt watching and nodded. "They don't ask who was stronger," the man said. "They ask who finished the repairs faster." "That's the right question," Holt replied. "Tell them to keep asking it." As he boarded the shuttle, he didn't look back. Not because there was nothing to see, but because everything he'd needed to prove had already taken root. Martinez watched the shuttle drift into transit alignment. Drex turned to her. "Think we'll ever need another retribution?" "No," she said. But we'll need someone else willing to build it if the day comes. Below them, traffic resumed. No guns fired, no threats exchanged, only ships moving between systems. Supply, aid, science. That was the noise of peace, and that was louder than any god had ever roared. Don't forget, history isn't written by gods, it's written by those who refuse to kneel. If this story challenged your idea of power, justice, and legacy, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more hard-hitting HFY tales.